Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon Ray, founder and voice of Falcons Drip.
Welcome back, everybody, to Falcons Drip Radio. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Kyle, and today we will be taking some of your hot takes and discussing how hot we think they really are. And then at the end of the episode today, we will give out two each of our hot takes. One of them is a warm to hot take, and then the second will be a flaming hot take. And well, you guys will want to catch those for sure.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a fun episode. It's gonna be an episode where we get a little overconfident, and pump up the expectations. So hopefully we don't pump it up too much, so we prepare ourselves for disappointment.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of hot takes that we got from you guys. We aren't going to be able to get to everyone's. And so if you listen to this episode and you're like, where's mine? If you guys DM me on the side, I'm happy to not only post, I'm not, I'm hope, ha, I'm not, ha, I'm, ugh. If you guys DM me on the side, I'm happy not only to answer them, but I'm also happy to post them in my story. So if you listen to the episode, you don't hear yours, please reach back out to me. But with that, the one that stood out to me the most was from Falcons News Buzz, and he said that Calais Campbell will have more sacks than Grady Jarrett.
We'll sure hope that doesn't happen, because I think that's a sign of something bad to come. Because if like we expect for Calais Campbell, where he splits snaps, maybe plays slightly over 50% of the snaps and rotates in with hopefully Lorenzo Carter. That'd be a bad deal. Because hopefully with Grady, with these new help on the side, maybe he can get closer to 10 sacks instead of the 0 mark and stuff like that. So if he has less, I'm not feeling great about how this Falcons pressure played out, but I think
Or
it's definitely quite possible.
or hear me out, all eyes are on Grady, giving Calais Campbell one-on-ones and him just dominating, Grady ending with 10 sacks, Calais ending with 11. That's what I like to hear. Let's go.
Yeah, but that's like a crazy
I
scenario. Like
so how hot do you think does that take? Because I think realistically, I don't
I
think
don't
that's
think it's
gonna happen.
super hot, especially since Grady's an interior pass rusher. If
Calais
Grady
kind of
was an edge rusher or a
Calais
defensive end,
basically is though.
I would have said, "Oh, that's super hot." But right now, Calais Campbell has been a great pass rusher in his career. He's proven himself time and time again, getting double-digit sacks in countless years. So it wouldn't be all that surprising, but I don't think it looks great if he's leading them based off him being more of like a guy who's not on the field like down in and down out, and more so coming out and switching in and out a little bit.
I mean, when you look at it though, like Calais Campbell has been on, he's been on teams where he hasn't really been had to be doubled, right? And Grady's doubled all the time, and I don't think that that's going to be able to happen. I mean, a game stands out where Grady was triple teamed by the Lions, and he sits there and he goes, "What? You can't block. You're not going to block anybody else." And they didn't have to, and that's not the case anymore. And I think Grady's going to eat. So I think for me, this is a hot take because I don't think there's any way Grady, unless like you said, unless things go terribly wrong, there's no way Grady has less sacks or
Yeah,
more set.
the
Yeah, less
only
sacks
reason
and
I
more
mark it
sacks.
as not crazy hot, like not all that surprising, is because Calais is more of a defensive end. And if you
Mhm.
look historically, defensive ends tend to get more sacks. And sometimes interior defensive linemen, it's harder to turn those pressures into sacks. So that's the whole reason I'm like, oh, maybe there's a chance of it. It's not one of those ones where I'm like, this is definitely impossible, but it's one of those ones that's an above average spicy take for sure.
Let's move on to the next one because I want to get to as many of these as we can without running out of time. Um, so Justin Hurio says that Okuda has himself a big year, and ATL Falcons talk says Jeff Okuda breaks out and gets 7 picks. So let's combine those two, right? And I
Mhm.
think to get 7 picks is really hot, but at the same time, if like I see a path where it can happen. If AJ Terrell truly is locked down, even if he has to stay on one side of the field and they have to go to Akuda and Akuda takes that next step up, like everyone's expecting him to when he was the number 3 overall pick, then it's good. 7 picks could easily, I don't want to say easily happen, but like there's a world where this happens. So I would say it's hot, but I wouldn't say it's like unreasonable.
I think it's super hot. This is one of those ones where it's nearly impossible unless you're going to be one of those cornerbacks who's kind of one of those boomer bust guys. Because personally, there's not enough good solid balls that you can be confident and be like, okay, this is an easy pick where I just go up and get it, where the quarterback threw a bad throw and I clamp down the receiver. But he's definitely a guy who could do it. But the question is, would the other teams go and start throwing towards AJ Terrell when he starts playing that well? So
Yeah, so
that's the only reason I'm like, this doesn't happen because I feel like the other team would start throwing AJ's way and he wouldn't get as many passes thrown his way.
yeah. Like I said, I think if AJ truly becomes that guy, then they would have to throw it there.
Yeah, it definitely is possible.
And like you said, the
But
boomer.
I'm not sold on that yet.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, 7 picks is a lot. I mean, I can't remember the
Yeah.
last time we had Thomas Dakoud, maybe. But anyways, um, moving on. A feature gaming YT, Bryce Young will not succeed in Carolina. And
Ooh, interesting.
for me personally, I think this is like really hot. And I hope I don't know. I really like Bryce Young and I wish he didn't go to Carolina. Um, I think this is about as hot as the other ones for me personally, because I think he will be successful. But at the same time, we've seen we've seen other quarterbacks in his same tier of quarterbacking be unsuccessful, not due to them, typically not due to the player, due to the team.
My thing with this one is I'm gonna take it. It's not gonna be from like him being a bad player. This is more of like, is he not big enough to play in the NFL? We know he's 5'9", probably under 200 at this point. So he's a smaller quarterback, and if he starts getting crushed like by D linemen because Carolina has a bad supporting cast around him, there's a chance this doesn't work out. He's got washed receivers down there. So I don't think this one is crazy hot. It's probably slightly above average on takes. It's like a 7 out of 10 for me, but I don't think it's to the point where you're like, this is impossible. I think it's to the point where you're like, okay, this is the more unlikely outcome, but I could see a world where this happens.
Moving on to the next one. The Flash Speed Force says this team makes the Super Bowl and Bijan goes for 2,000 yards rushing, 500 plus receiving. And I think this is just absolutely hot, hot, hot. And not because of the Super Bowl part, but you throw that in there, it makes it a lot hotter, right? But for Bijan to have 2,000 yards rushing, that would, for me, that would mean Tyler Algier has become completely like he just doesn't play, whether he's been hurt or something along those lines, and have 500 plus receiving yards. That means, you know, Kyle Pitts and Drake London probably aren't getting the ball as much. So do I think it's possible? Yes, but this is a 10 out of 10 probably for hotness for me.
This one is like an 11 out of 10 for me.
You're saying it can't happen.
This one went past the scale. I could get Falcons going to a Super Bowl. That's a hot one where I'd probably say 9 out of 10 because there's
Yeah.
a world where things fall right and it happens.
Hmm.
But the fact that he's splitting carries with Tyler Algier and it's probably going to be 50-50, that leads me to believe both running backs will have similar numbers. And if that happens, you're talking about running backs having between those two guys having 4,000 yards, and I just think that's not possible at this point.
So we got a lot of Drake London ones. Let me hammer all those out at once. Crazy Eights Hockey 25 says Drake London near 2,000 yards receiving this year. Fletch 08 says Drake London 1,500 yards. Um, Deuce says London 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. Uh, Micah Micah Horsam says London has better than 23 to 24 than any other receiver, has a better 23 and 24 than any other receiver in his class. Um, so lots of London talk. Where do you want to start?
I think let's start with
Let's
the
just go. Why
1,000
don't we go?
yards
Let's
and
go
touchdowns one.
touchdowns and yards. So let's just like break it into two different things. So I think that
Okay.
would be easier. So let's say 10 touchdowns was what I remember. 10 or 15 touchdowns is what I remember seeing. Yeah, 10 touchdowns.
I think that one's pretty spicy. Probably like an 8 out of 10. Because you look at what Kyle Pitts did in his first couple of years. He, I think, had like one or a couple touchdowns over his first couple of seasons. Not a lot of touchdowns. So it'll be interesting to see. It's just really hard to get a touchdown in this league. Especially 10 receiving touchdowns, because you got to think that's more than a touchdown every 2 games. And I don't know if this offense is gonna pass it enough for him to get that.
I where I do think it is hot, I don't think it's as hot as what you think. And I believe that's because in the red zone, all eyes will be on Kyle Pitts second and the running game first. So you just can't put that many bodies on London, and you can't put the focus on London. So I could see a world where Arthur Smith absolutely utilizes that. Um, so I don't think it's. I mean, I think it would be awesome if he got 10 touchdowns. Do I think he'll get there? I'd lean more towards like 7, 8, 9-ish. Double digit would be crazy, but I think it is possible. Um, and then just jumping over to yards, I don't see any reason why he can't have 1,000 yards. 1,500 yards. Now that's pretty hot. And then oh no, near 2,000. That is like hot, hot, hot. I don't think he will get enough.
Hmm.
I don't think he'll get enough volume to reach 2,000 yards.
I think the most he could get would be close to 1,300 yards. Because you look at the Falcons offense, it's built for the run game, and the fact that it's so built for the run game uh leads me to believe that they don't have enough for it to get to 2,000.
Hmm. Um, So jumping over to Kyle Pitts, Ritter season says Kyle Pitts bounces back, has 900 yards and six plus touchdowns. Deuce says Pitts has 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns, and the Football Falcon says Kyle Pitts has 1,200 yards this season. Um,
All those
and
aren't too spicy to me.
Yeah, me either. I think Kyle Pitts is an absolute freak. Oh, sorry. Dakar says Kyle Pitts returning with a more accurate quarterback will silence his doubters. And I think this is of all the things that we've heard, like this is the quietest. Like
Mm.
people don't realize when the amount of yards Mariota missed on with Kyle Pitts was crazy. And when you see Kyle
Wasn't it
Pitts,
close to 400, 3 to
yeah,
400
yeah,
yards?
yeah. I'm pretty sure it's close to 400. And when you see, and he missed a big chunk of the year. And when you see Kyle Pitts
Mm.
get the ball, like his ability, like these strides he makes and how quickly he picks up ground is like you do is it's very sudden and very unexpected. And you all of a sudden you're just like, holy cow, that was a 25-yard play. Where did that like how did that happen?
Yeah,
Um,
not to mention he runs like a 4.4 at 6'5",
yeah,
230. So
yeah.
he's a big guy who it's just insane to match up with him. Like if you're able to match up with him, that's a legit. Do you put a big corner? Do you put a small guy? It's hard to tell. What we got
Uh,
next?
Next, uh, Dito Flick says the Falcons are in playoff contention and trade for Cooper Kupp in the middle of the season. I love the playoff contention, I think is not big. The trading for
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp is hot. A lot of
Yeah,
things.
I don't think that happens.
I don't think so either.
This
I see
one this one might be even I'm not gonna say it's hotter than
it.
the Super Bowl and
It's,
2000 yards
it's
one.
for sure 200,000 yards and 500 receiving yards. There's
Yeah,
definitely
because
not hotter than that. This would be a 10. Not
this one's a 10. This one's just barely on the scale.
but like if this happens, I'm gonna come looking for this because I love when people call their shot. Like that would be awesome if we traded for Cooper Kupp. He's a perfect slot receiver for this offense. So um
100%.
a lot of things would have to go right in order for that to happen though.
And I don't know what a trade would look like, and we'd be looking at leveraging the future for a
Hmm.
player, which
Yeah.
I don't love the idea of that. So
Yeah. Ben Eckersley, 11, says Grady establishes himself as the best defensive tackle in the league. And
uh,
if you were to tell me, if you were to change the wording and say second best, I would say this isn't that hot. But
mhm.
Aaron Donald's out there, and as great as Grady is, like Aaron Donald's arguably the best defensive player to ever play.
100%. Like, there is a chance he could have a better season. Let's say Aaron Donald gets hurt. Aaron Donald has a down year. Maybe something goes wrong for him that we're not expecting. But I think it's one of the hotter ones. So I think this is like a 9 out of 10 on the hot scale. I think it's possible because you
Hmm.
never know, and football's wonky and it'll toss different things at you. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if there's but if it's top three, definitely. But
Yeah.
this pretty hot.
Hot, 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 hot. Um, Road Dog 7 says the Falcons add two of these free agents, Robert Quinn, Rashawn Evans, and Jarvis Landry. And I think that's hot. Just to call two out of those three is pretty hot. Rashawn Evans, it kind of feels like he wants to go someplace where he's going to play. And that's not in Atlanta right now. He would be a third string at best, or a backup at best, not third string, but he'd be the third linebacker at best.
100%. I think Rashawn Evans is gone for good. I think you could give this like an 8 out of 10 for him coming back because
Yeah.
there's definitely that small sliver of chance that you keep alive, but I think it's dead now after they haven't re-signed
Yeah.
him.
I think Jarvis Landry is a worse Scotty Miller at this point in his career. And I think that Robert Quinn would definitely add veteran leadership that we don't really need anymore to a position where he wouldn't add much more value and would cost a lot more. Right? Like I
Yeah,
don't
100%.
at this
I
stage at this stage he's not that much better than the guys that we have.
Yeah, I think with the improvements there, you'd rather not take him and play your young guys. But he'd definitely be a great addition if we didn't have like a
Yeah.
Calais Campbell or
Hmm.
Onyemata replace one of those guys. But overall, I'm loving what the Falcons have done, and I think the only way they use some of the cap is if a home run signing comes and slaps them in the face.
And when you look at our edge depth chart, like if you bring on Robert Quinn, you're cutting one of either Malone, AK, or Lorenzo Carter, and I don't see that happening. So,
hmm
um, and then the last couple we'll group together, and then we'll do our own hot takes. Desmond Ritter will look like Deshaun Watson, mobile, act good and accurate from Dakar. Ritter MVP from Big Nick Jumpman. Desmond Ritter proves the haters wrong and becomes a top 15 to 12 quarterback. Let's go one at a time, but we'll just go quick. because these are slightly different. So Desmond Ritter will look like Deshaun Watson, pretty mobile, good, and accurate. And I think if you're talking about stylistically, it's accurate, but what Deshaun Watson was doing at one point in his career, I don't believe Desmond Ritter will get there, especially in 2023.
If you're talking about last year, Deshaun Watson, he's definitely there.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
But if you're talking about prime Deshaun Watson, I think it's a bit hot. I think it's like a 6 or 7 on the scale
No,
because I don't think it's hot that he won't, because he has the potential to get there.
I agree, but I don't think it'll happen in 2023.
100%.
Um, Big Nick Jumpman says Ritter for MVP, which I think is obviously really hot, but more likely than people think because if all he has to do is be a distributor and let Bijan, uh, Kyle Pitts, Drake London, and just like let these weapons eat against some pretty poor defenses that were playing this year. And Atlanta goes 12-5, 13-4, and we make a playoff push, like it's very possible. It's still very hot, 7, 8, 9 hot, but
Mhm.
there's a world where it could happen.
100%. I completely agree, and I don't think there's anything to add. I think it's just you have to let it play out and see what happens because whenever they come out with the MVP favorites, it's usually never the guy they pick.
Yeah. Um, Gray M34 says Ritter will be a top 10 player, and Feature Gaming YT says Ritter will be a top 12 to 15. And if we're looking at the top 12 to 15, I think it's pretty cold. Um, I think that's an easy range to get to. I think there's a lot of players like kind of in contention in that, like from 10 to 17, 11 to 17. I think getting in the top 10 is a lot hotter because there are a lot of really good quarterbacks in this league.
Mhm.
And even if he is an MVP type player, he still may not get the recognition he deserves as being or he still may not get the recognition as being a top 10 type quarterback, if that makes any sense. Right? Where
A
if like
hundred percent.
there are some quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers was horrible last year. Not horrible, he was headed down year, but he was still talked about as one of the top 10 guys. So,
Yeah, I definitely love Ritter's potential, and I think he has a chance to get there. And I think it might be slightly hot. I think it's like a 6. It's a little hotter of a take since Ritter's so new and we don't know what he's going to be from 4 games of sample size. But I think it's kind of realistic kind of expectations of what you should expect Ritter to be pushing for in his first full season as the starter.
all
And
right.
with that, you want to start first with your hot take?
Sure. How about I'll do my medium one and then you do your two and then I'll do my hot one last.
Okay, sounds good.
My hot take is the Atlanta Falcons have a top 8 defense by the time the season's over.
That one's pretty hot.
That is pretty hot, and it's not as hot as my second one.
That
But
that's your first one?
my first one, that's my milder one. I think it is like it seems really hot, but again, we're playing against some really bad offenses. We've added so much on all 3 levels, and we just need we're setting our star or who our stars already were. We're putting them now in positions where they can actually be successful, right? AJ Terrell has never played with a good defensive line. Grady Jarrett has never played with a good defensive line. They were
Mhm.
teaming Grady, and quarterbacks still had all day to throw all over AJ. And now that's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, a
We're going
hundred
to get.
percent. I love that take, and I think it's possible. Is it very hot? Absolutely.
It is
But
hot.
I don't think my first one is as hot as that. I was a little worried I was going too hot for the first one, but now it seems a little tamer. And I'm going defensively as well. And this one is Falcons get 40 sacks this season,
Mm,
which would almost double their total from 21 they had last year. And to do that, they'd have to get almost 10 from Arnold Ebiketie, maybe closer to 10 from Grady, 5 from Calais Campbell, um, 4 from maybe Malone. You just have to have a bunch of guys contribute, and hopefully it makes enough of the difference because you're not going to have that high end guy to get to 40.
And last year there was like 14 teams that had 40 or more sacks, and then I think there was like 4 teams who did have 40. So that's probably right around league a little above league average. And if we can do that, I mean, this defense will get to what we've talked about and what I talked about being a top 8 defense. I really think.
Because I think the secondary has the potential to be a top 5 secondary. You look at the corners,
Yeah.
you look at the top 5 safety in the league in Jesse Bates, and then you got some young guys with some potential. So there's a lot to love on this defense.
You have a top safety in Jesse Bates. You have AJ Terrell. You've got the number 3 overall pick in Jeff Okudah. You have Richie Grant, who's a second round pick. Like there's a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff that could happen for sure. So what's your hotter take?
My hotter take, I was just gonna go 2 1,000-yard receivers, but after seeing some of these takes and hearing your take, I think I gotta go hotter. And I'm gonna go Falcons have 2 1,000-yard receivers and 2 1,000-yard rushers.
That was mine.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. And which is so hot, and I think there's definitely a world where it happens. I really think so.
Me too.
And I will add this just to change it up a little bit. Kyle Pitts is talked about as he's a contender for offensive player of the year, and even gets at least one vote for MVP. That's
Ooh,
how
I like that. One
that's
vote
how
for
hot
him.
it's me. We're getting the alien unicorn is finally breaking out, and everyone's gonna watch. How hot is this? 10 out of 10 probably. But
Yeah.
there's a world where it can happen, and that's really what I'm banking on. And Atlanta's winning 12 plus games this year. Kyle Pitts is leading the way.
Who was it? Who compared was it Ritter who compared Drake London to Mike Evans?
Scotty Miller and
Oh, it was
somebody else,
Scotty Miller, that's right.
and someone else did too. I mean, we've got guys getting compared to Mike Evans. Our running backs getting compared to Marshall Falk, and you can't compare Kyle Pitts to anything because there's never been a player like him.
Well, there are some great tight ends who have come before him that have had similar impacts, but none of them are the exact same player. He's a
And
little different in that he's less physical and more of the faster type.
nobody's
I
nobody's
think I've
been
seen guys who can put up numbers like he put up, but they do it in a more of a physical way.
no player's ever been 6'6" and run a 4.4 with that wingspan.
Yeah.
This will be and it takes tight ends to get going, and this will be the year it happens.
Plus, he hasn't had the quarterback play with Mariota throwing like 53%, I think it was.
Yeah.
Mariota missing throws, trying his best to throw interceptions, it seemed like at times. But I definitely was encouraged to see the offense just based off how the offense was able to overpower people, even though they knew they
Mhm.
were running it like every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this time we're gonna pound it down their throats and throw it over their heads.
100%.
Well, guys, thank you for your hot takes. We hope you like ours. Let us know in the comments what you guys think, how hot ours is. You can give us the fire emojis or how hot you think they are. Um, and we look forward to kind of getting you guys more engaged, whether it be an Instagram, Twitter, through the podcast. Just let us know, and hopefully in the next upcoming kind of and hopefully in the coming episodes, we'll start looking at some of our draft picks and breaking it down a little bit more.
Yeah, we need to do some like some player comps and give people an idea of what they're like. I got to do some research into that and make sure I'm understanding what I'm doing. Also, before we leave, should we talk about your number 5 favorite receiver? Your favorite to be the Falcons' number 1 5 receiver getting cut? And
I
Justin
know,
Marshall.
I know. I was shocked. I was shocked. Crazy. I didn't even know what to say. I was wrong.
Yeah, looking at the new receiver they signed, Chris Blair, he's going to be wearing number 17, which is Olamide Zaccheaus' old number. Do you think he has a chance to be this number 5 receiver for the Falcons?
I think if he didn't, they wouldn't have brought him in.
He's also the 29th player to be signed this offseason from the XFL. And I think he has a great chance. For me, it's
Yeah.
between him and Penny Hart right now.
I mean, his speed is ridiculous. I don't know how fast he runs. I've just watched some of his highlights and he looks awesome. So we'll just have to see. I mean, he could be an amazing if he does all the special teams, he could be an amazing fifth receiver.
I
So
remember when we reported his signing, people were saying he was the Julio Jones of the XFL. And I heard that DC Defenders wide receiver core was stacked. I haven't checked him out completely, but from the highlights I've watched, he's a great deep ball threat and a perfect receiver to try to make this roster and be a big physical guy.
all right, guys. Well, yep, that's it for the show today. Thank you guys all for listening. And as always, go Falcons, rise up.
Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.